You ever just look at the internet and wonder why, with all its amazing potential, it feels so, well, broken? I think a lot of us feel that way. So today, we're going to skip the usual surface level stuff. We're not talking about the symptoms anymore. We're going deeper to investigate a fundamental structural flaw that was basically baked into the internet from day one. All right, let's get into it. You can almost think of it like a detective story, an unsolved mystery. The problems are everywhere, right? The polarization, the constant outrage, the misinformation, and we keep trying to patch it up, but none of the fixes ever seem to really work. Why is that? This is the core question we're tackling. We're treating the internet like a crime scene, and the fact that these problems just won't go away, well, that's our biggest clue. It tells us we might be looking for the wrong culprit entirely. And here they are, the usual suspects. Better content moderation, tweaking the algorithms, more media literacy classes, platform regulation. We've tried all of these, again and again. And look, they're not bad ideas in themselves, but the argument in the source material is that they're just treating the symptoms. It's kind of like slapping a Band-Aid on a compound fracture. You're not fixing the real underlying break. And that's the big reveal. We've been looking in the wrong place this whole time. The problem isn't the nasty content or a buggy algorithm or even the platforms themselves. No, it's a design flaw from the very, very beginning. Something was missing from the internet's foundation. So, to find that flaw, we've got to jump in a time machine and go all the way back to the birth of the web. The early internet, it was this incredible thing for communication, but it was born incomplete. There were some really crucial pieces missing from its economic DNA. These are the 5 big ones. Back then, there was no easy way to pay for things directly inside the network. Your digital identity was flimsy, not really verifiable. Those tiny little payments, think a fraction of a penny to read an article, were basically impossible. You didn't have autonomous agents, little bits of code that could go out and do things for you, and crucially, trust had to happen outside the system. And this quote just nails the central issue. The internet was a miracle for moving information around for free almost instantly. But, and this is a huge but, it had no built-in way to move value. Money, reputation, actual economic weight. It couldn't move value with that same incredible ease, and that left a massive hole. So you've got this giant economic vacuum. Something had to rush in to fill it, and a workaround appeared. Not because it was the best idea or the most elegant solution, but because it was the only thing that could possibly work with those early limitations. Just think about it. For me to pay you directly for something online, we'd need trust, a way to verify identity, and payment systems. All things the early web just didn't have. But the advertising model, it didn't need any of that. It could scale up globally with practically zero friction because it completely sidestepped the user as a direct part of the transaction. Now, this is so important to get. Advertising wasn't just some business model that got tacked on top of the internet. Because it was the only game in town, it essentially fused with the system's core. It became the economic backbone, shaping absolutely everything that grew around it. Okay, so what happens when a quick fix, a workaround, becomes the permanent, unchallenged logic for a system used by billions of people? Well, it starts to create some really nasty, unintended consequences. This is what the source material calls the attention fragility cycle. Let's unpack that. When the only way to make money is by capturing eyeballs to show them ads, you create this incredibly powerful feedback loop. The system starts to reward whatever is most engaging, not what's true or helpful or logical. And it turns out the things that are most engaging are often shock, conflict, and chaos. First off, the system rewards what's salient over what's coherent. What that means is, any content that gets an immediate, hot, emotional reaction, like outrage or fear, is always going to be content that needs slow, careful thought. It's exactly why a crazy, misleading headline can circle the globe a million times before thoughtful correction even puts its shoes on. Reaction always wins against reflection. Second, it rewards what's new over what's continuous. The system is like a beast that needs a constant fire hose of new content to sell ads against. So it develops this massive bias for the latest thing, not the deepest thing. It's why deep analysis gets buried under the latest viral video. The system isn't designed to remember, it's designed to constantly hit refresh. Third, The system rewards massive scale over local context. See, revenue grows with the size of the audience, right? So the incentive is always to create content that has the widest, most generic appeal possible. Nuanced discussions, local issues, they just can't compete unless they can be twisted into some simple, universally enraging format. Nuance, sadly, doesn't go viral. And finally, it rewards volatility over stability. Think about it. A stable community where everyone is pretty much in agreement, that's economically worthless in this model. There are no new clicks, no new arguments to fuel engagement. But conflict, tribalism, constant bickering? Oh man, that's an endless goldmine of engagement. The system literally pays us to be at each other's throats. This quote really just sums up the final result perfectly. The entire purpose of us talking to each other online shifts. It stops being about building a shared understanding of the world over time, and instead, our digital town square just becomes this arena for endless stimulation, where the value of an idea is judged by how fast it spreads, not by its power to actually build something meaningful. But here comes the plot twist. The entire story that we've just walked through, this story of a system built on a necessary evil, on a workaround, it's all based on a premise that is no longer true. The original constraint, it's gone. Yeah, in the last decade or so, the technology has finally caught up. We actually have the tools now that the early internet was missing. We can move value directly on networks using things like cryptocurrencies for digital settlement. Those microtransactions, paying a tiny amount for content, are now completely possible. We've got much better ways of handling digital identity, and we even have software agents that can do business on our behalf. So if you look at the internet's economic story, it goes like this. In the 90s, you had this real, unavoidable technical problem. In the 2010s, the ad model got so huge it created this lock-in effect. But today, right now, that original problem, that constraint, is over. We're in a totally new chapter. And this is the real kicker, the big takeaway. Continuing to run our digital world on this attention-grabbing, ad-based model, it's not a technical requirement anymore, not by a long shot. It is now a choice, an architectural choice. We are sticking with this broken system purely out of habit, out of inertia, not because we have to. And that leaves us with the biggest, most important question of all. Now that we understand the original flaw, and now that we know the technological excuses for it are gone, the power is actually back in our hands. The internet's first draft is officially obsolete. So, what are we going to build to replace it?